Being a woman who likes to vermicompost for over 20 years, I just purchased this state-of-the-art vermicompost bin. It's called a hungry bin. And I built it last night, and now I'm going to fill it up with started out with some compost and then some shredded newspaper that's getting all nice and moist, ready to shred in these buckets with water. And then the worms go next, and then I get to start feeding the worms in my new hungry bin right here in my living room. So I'm out on my porch. It is nighttime after work, and I'm mixing my organic compost with water, and I'm mixing it fairly moist because I figure it can always drain out of the bottom of the hungry bin if it's too moist, but it's hard to get it more moist once it's in there if it's too dry. I'm filling it up with moist organic compost. I've got my little shield on the bottom, my black plastic, just in case there's a little bit of a leak, but it's not supposed to. Any drippings go right into that tray. And my friend who has one of these says that she hasn't had any other drippings, but just want to be extra careful and made this little tray out of thick black plastic. So as the directions say, I've got my hungry bin filled about to that level with the compost mixed with water, and now I've got my newspaper, which I've soaked in water, and it's pretty soaked, and I'm going to shred it and make a nice layer of bedding for the worms, their favorite. Hungry bin, state-of-the-art technology in vermicomposting is ready. You see that some of the extra liquid did seep out the bottom. I'm glad I made it so moist instead of too dry. We got the moist newspaper right there, and we've got our bucket of worms ready to go in. Very exciting. I ended up only needing one bucket of moistened newspapers. The next step is to feed the worms. We have some nice banana peels in here that they'll eat up, and strawberry tops, seedless Concord grapes, some arugula stems, and cilantro stems, and all kinds of good things. Oh, beet tops. Yummy, yummy. Nightshades are relatively high in solanine, which is a toxin that acts as a pesticide. Potatoes, eggplants, peppers, tomatoes, tomatillos are nightshades. It's best not to feed the worms these items. It's very important to keep the bin and the newspaper moist, so I've got a nice moist newspaper layer on top, and it's already getting a little bit dry, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more moisture because it can always come out the bottom. I have a decorative cloth over my hungry bin and a little bit heavier blanket on the back up against the window there to keep them warm. They're right here next to my fireplace, so they'll be warm and happy, and in the next 8 weeks or so I'll be able to undo this little latch, and there'll be just castings, the worm poop in here, no worms basically because of this state-of-the-art system, and then the castings will go towards plants to help them be stronger and full of vitality. The tea that comes out the bottom is great for diluting a bit with water and then watering your plants. I'd like to let you know that the worms like the dark. So when you open the bin to feed them, there's all that light. It kind of shocks them and scares them. And so I like to feed the worms once a week. Friday feeding is easy to remember. Here's a flyer I made about vermicomposting. Feel free to pause the video to read this. I'd like to mention that there is no smell in this worm bin as long as you do not overfeed your worms. Basically, make sure they eat all their food before you feed them more food. And keep in mind, fresh food scraps are the best.
I save my food scraps in a brown paper bag in the refrigerator because the paper bag absorbs some of the moisture from the food and it can go into the bin with the food. Like the moist newspaper, the worms will eat it and they will nest in it. Here is some information about worm castings. Again, pause the video to read it. The worms are called red wigglers. You can get them online at Uncle Jim's Worm Farm or sometimes from a friend. Worms will double their population every 2 to 3 months when they are fed well and they are warm. You don't have to have your bin in your living room. A heated garage works well. My new Hungry Bin is ready. Within 3 to 4 months, the organic compost with which I started the bin will be replaced by worm castings, and the liquid coming out the bottom will be worm tea. Thanks for watching and learning about this terrific use for your food scraps.